I do try to keep a level head on most topics that I cover here on the channel, but there are certain things that absolutely hit my buttons. I don't like it when kids are targeted really with any kind of ideology. It really, really bothers me. And the targeting of kids, specifically with LGBTQ plus and trans ideology, I think is absolutely disgusting. It's been going on for far too long. I'm shocked that people are still going along with this, that parents haven't fought back hard enough to teach publishers like DC Comics and obviously other places out there like your Netflix, your Disney Plus. They're always throwing this crap on kid stuff. And this is my stance on it. Let kids be fucking kids. Let them pretend that the floor is lava, or that they're playing X-Men or G.I. Joe, or that they're Barbie princesses or something of that nature. And then when they're old enough, they're actually adults, they can start dealing with our bullshit. But so many people out there really want to drag kids into it because they know, it's hard to say no to a child or not to want to empathize with a child, no matter what's going on, when they are in a moment of distress or pain or sadness or something like that. And there are a lot of parents out there grabbing their kids, throwing hormone blockers on toddlers and nonsense like that I think is completely disgusting. I think it's absolutely disgusting behavior, in DC continuing to target children with trans ideology in comic books, I think is equally as disgusting. I think it's just all bad across the board. And this is the honest truth. If all of a sudden somebody created like a character that was going down to the border and stopping illegal immigrants and throwing coyotes back over the border, but it was aimed at 8-year-olds, I would be equally fucking pissed off about that as well. And DC are going down this road once again. Jadzia Axelrod now gets a Galaxy, the Prettiest Star sequel. Galaxy, DC's trans hero aimed at 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, is getting a sequel. And a lot of times when you start reading into these people, I'll talk about Jadzia Axelrod specifically here, obviously a trans creator, wanting to use the DC Comics platform to influence children to also be trans. That's the point of the book. They come off as exceptionally narcissistic. When you go back and read interviews from Jadzia Axelrod talking about why he created Galaxy, the Prettiest Star, it's always about me. I needed to see me in a book. This is my journey. This is all about me. It's all about what Jadzia Axelrod wanted. Also talking about the graphic novel Galaxy, Jadzia literally says, I wouldn't change a thing about this book. It's literally perfect. Of course it's perfect because you're a trans person. Of course it has to be perfect. There's nothing wrong with the book. And there's actually some more details that I'll get to here at the end that Jadzia Axelrod as a creator has been given like more rights than even like a Scott Snyder or a Chuck Dixon or anybody really at comic books these days. It's absolutely insane. Galaxy, as the world falls down, brings more romance, more action, and more queer joy as Taylor faces her biggest fear, the vein. Taylor Barzilay is finally living as her authentic self, a purple alien space princess with blue hair and superpowers, with a loving girlfriend, Kat, and an adorable talking corgi that doubles as a bodyguard. Taylor should feel more at home on Earth than ever, so why doesn't she? As Kat plans for life after high school, Taylor begins to wonder what the future holds for her, despite dealing with bigots in her hometown, protecting her friend Nia Nal from an evil alien aunt, and honing her powers more than ever before. Taylor still isn't sure she can claim her identity as the superhero Galaxy. You look at the cover, you see the art. This graphic novel is aimed at 8, 7, 6, 5-year-olds, and it's promising to bring more queer joy to prepubescent children. That's where DC Comics are, and I find this type of behavior reprehensible. I hate it from Netflix. I hate it from Disney Plus. I hate it from all these big companies. But of course, all these big companies essentially own everything at this point. There's just been all this consolidation over the last 10, 15 years that literally, if you want to watch television or watch something that you like, you can't not support these kind of companies. It's absolutely insane the way this has gone down and the way that they have absolutely gobbled up this very, very harmful ideology towards children and are spitting it out so often towards them. And I know a lot of people are like, Wes, why are you still covering culture war and stuff like that? You know, it's been won. Trump won the presidency. It's all over now. No, it's not. Open your fucking eyes. They're still doing this bullshit. They're just fighting back and pushing harder on a lot of this stuff. It is nonstop. You can't trust any of these people Whether it be the writer Jadzia Axelrod or the editor-in-chief Marie Javins, all the way up to the fucking head of Warner Brothers and David Zaslav, all these people are using these platforms to try to influence children and do harm to them. And I firmly believe this, and I think people should be fighting back harder today than ever. Nothing has been won. There's a little bit of momentum. There is a culture shift going on, but there are also so many people out there that are trying to go back and push it back to where things were going just a couple of years ago, which is absolutely the path to the cultural destruction of the entire West. It has been a big plan. It's been ongoing for years. These ideas and projects are just as prevalent today as they were 2 years ago and 5 years ago. And when you hear from the creators behind this kind of stuff, in this case, Jadzia Axelrod, talking about what the book is supposed to represent and what he's actually trying to get across, there's always like this really weird vindictive nature. But I've never done anything personally to harm anybody that was trans, gay, any of this kind of stuff. But apparently you and I and everybody else needs to be taught a lesson. This is what Jadzia Axelrod told the Comic Book Case in an interview in 2022. As a queer person and as a trans person, I have had to see myself through a lot of metaphors, a lot of metaphorical stories where people are metaphorically queer or metaphorically trans. And I wanted to flip that a bit and write a story where the transness was literal. The queerness is literal. That's actual. But there was still a metaphorical element so that cis people and straight people could read the story and still get something out of it. So it's your turn, straight and cisgender people, to see yourselves through metaphor. And hopefully I did that right. As if straight and cisgender people have been wagging their fingers at trans people and say, no, we can only speak about you in metaphor, but you are never allowed to speak about us in metaphor. Like, how fucking petty can you get on this bullshit? And that's what the book is there for. It's there to finger wag at straight and cisgender people because we're so evil. And I'm tired of people like DC and Netflix and Disney allowing these fucking insane goofballs to fucking hijack their platforms and spew this kind of bullshit throughout their publishers and TV shows and video games and fucking streaming shows and everything that's been going on. This has been going on for far too long, and it's time for people to finally say, fuck it, I've had enough, because this is absolutely ridiculous. And the most ridiculous part about all this, going back and reading some interviews about Galaxy and all that kind of stuff, getting refreshed, is I found this little fucking nugget. When Galaxy, the Prettiest Star, is released in May, Taylor will join the DC universe, where presumably she will be folded into the canon. Part of the beauty and the vulnerability of creating a comic book character like Taylor is that she will be embraced by other writers and artists in their stories. Included in his agreement with DC is a stipulation that Jadzia will continue as part owner of Taylor, and any other writer wanting to use Taylor will consult with him. A strong trans voice must stay behind Taylor so that her story can still ring true. Now, as far as I know, when you do work for hire for DC Comics, you do get ownership of the character if you create something that's wholly unique. You do get points on that, but you don't get creative control once you're done at DC Comics. But for some reason, fucking Jadzia Axelrod gets creative control over Galaxy. Now, the reality of the situation is there's only one other writer in all of DC Comics that will ever use this character, and that is Nicole Maines, their other house trans writer. Nobody else is going to want to fucking touch this character with a 15-foot pole because the character is bullshit. Jadzia Axelrod is, in fact, a terrible writer. If you don't believe me, go read the Hawk Girl miniseries that DC produced last year. It was an absolute abomination. So nobody's going to want to use this character, but if they did want to, you would actually have to consult Jadzia Axelrod directly and get his approval on the fucking story. Do we think that Chuck Dixon was given creative control on anything he created during his years and years of work on Batman and the Batman family, where he literally created dozens of things that actually generated fucking revenue for DC Comics? Of course not, because that's not a fucking normal caveat in the contracts. But because Jadzia Axelrod is trans, DC Comics must give Jadzia Axelrod special consideration and control over the fucking character. Do you think Scott Snyder gets that? Do you think anyone has to consult Scott Snyder directly if they want to include the Court of Owls in anything, his original creation that is still generating money for DC Comics? And if we're being honest, probably generates more money in 2025 alone than Galaxy that anything will ever do in the lifetime of the fucking character? Scott Snyder doesn't get that, but Jadzia Axelrod does. because it's a special category. That's a marginalized person. We have to treat them as if they're not like everybody else. And that's why Jadzia Axelrod thinks Galaxy the Prettiest Star, perfect book. You could never change anything about it. There's not a little word that would make that book improve. And you get these people brought aboard by DC with these insane personality disorders, obviously very, very narcissistic, with an enormous agenda to go in there to try to target children with their very destructive trans ideology when they're as young as like 5 years old. This is absolute nastiness. And I can't believe DC won't stop doing it. It doesn't generate money. It generates headlines. But other than that, it drives people away. This is why American pop culture is in a very dangerous state. I talked about it just a few days ago. Comic books is the microcosm. If you want to see what's happening to American pop culture, look at comic books. This is how you destroy it. And they're continuing to do it to this day. The culture war is certainly alive and well, even if you decided to bury your head in the sand and act like it just went away all of a sudden because Trump got elected. Absolute bullshit. This doesn't have anything to do with him. This has to do with corporate America deciding it is their job, their responsibility to usurp parents, go in there and start targeting kids with this very harmful ideology, and they simply refuse to quit, no matter how hard the pushback. If you appreciate these kind of honest takes on the comic book industry, perspective that you will find nowhere else but right here on Think Critical YouTube, and you would like to help support that mission of bringing honesty for the good stuff and certainly the bad stuff, you'd like to be part of the family, there's one place to do it, Think Critical Patreon. There's a link in the video description. There's a button right here, and we simply cannot continue to do this awesome, very important work without you. Hope to see you there very, very soon.